What if everything you were taught about love was only half the truth? We grow up with this picture painted for us: one perfect person, one lifelong commitment, happily ever after. It's everywhere. In the stories we read, the songs we hear, the vows we witness, we're told that love is about finding the one and holding on tight, but somewhere along the way, things start to feel more complicated. Temptation whispers, doubt creeps in, and deep inside, a quiet question begins to stir. Why does something that's supposed to feel so natural feel like a struggle? The answer isn't that love is broken. It's that we never understood how deep it really runs. Love isn't just romance. It's not just loyalty. It's not even just sacrifice. Real love, is a force that fights against our own biology. Because behind every heartbeat, every promise, every connection, there's a brain designed for survival, a brain wired for chemistry, not clarity, a brain that often chooses short-term pleasure over long-term purpose. That brain doesn't care about vows. It craves novelty. It releases dopamine when things are new and exciting. It gets bored. It looks around. It imagines what could be. And unless we learn how that brain works, we become slaves to it. But here's the powerful truth: knowing this doesn't make love weaker. It makes it stronger, because when you understand the battle inside you, you stop pretending it doesn't exist. And once you stop pretending, you can start winning. You can take back control. You can choose loyalty with your eyes wide open, not because it's easy, but because it matters. Science tells us that falling in love activates the same parts of the brain as addictive drugs. Dopamine surges, cortisol rises, your body floods with adrenaline, with oxytocin, with serotonin. It's beautiful, it's intoxicating, but just like any high, it fades, and when it does, what's left? That's where real love begins, not in the butterflies, but in the choice to stay, in the decision to build something that doesn't just make your heart race, but gives your life meaning. We talk about monogamy like it's a rule to follow, like it's some outdated contract designed to trap us in routine. But it's not a rule, it's a discipline, a test of character, a chance to rise above what's easy and choose what's right. It's not about suppressing desire. It's about mastering it, because anyone can chase a thrill, but it takes a different kind of strength to build a life, one loyal act at a time. The reward, it's more than just staying together, it's deeper connection. It's emotional safety. It's the kind of bond that transforms a partner into a soulmate, a relationship into a legacy. And here's something science has confirmed: people who truly commit experience more emotional stability, greater happiness, and even longer lives. Not because they've never been tempted, but because they've learned to overcome it. That's what makes the journey powerful, not the absence of struggle, but the victory over it. You're not weak if you feel conflicted. You're not broken if you've wrestled with thoughts you don't understand. You are human. You are wired to feel everything: desire, doubt, devotion, all at once. But you are also wired to grow, to evolve, to choose the kind of love that doesn't just excite your nervous system, but awakens your soul. If you've ever felt like you're standing at a crossroads, pulled between passion and purpose, freedom and commitment, you're not alone. But the truth is, the choice you make in those quiet moments shapes your future more than any big decision ever could, because the person you become in private determines the life you live in public. And that's the power hidden inside love. It's not about finding someone who completes you. It's about becoming someone who chooses again and again to show up, to stay, to grow, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard, because the strength of love isn't measured by how it starts. It's measured by how it endures, by how it transforms you. Stay with this message until the end, because the truth about love, real love, goes far beyond feelings. It touches something eternal, and when you see the science behind connection, when you understand the why behind the want, you'll never look at love or loyalty the same way again. But love alone isn't enough. It's the foundation, yes, but what you build on top of that foundation determines everything, because love without responsibility fades, love without action fails, and no role carries more weight, more pressure, and more potential for transformation than the role of a father. When a man becomes a father, something extraordinary happens, not just in his life, but in his brain. This isn't theory, this is science. Research shows that new fathers experience a surge in oxytocin, in the same hormone that builds trust, empathy, and connection. At the same time, testosterone drops. The primal urge to compete begins to give way to a deeper instinct, to protect, to nurture, to guide. A father doesn't just raise a child, he redefines himself. That shift is not weakness. It's evolution. The man who once chased goals only for himself begins to live for something greater, and that shift, that sacred transition, is where true strength is born, because nothing forces a man to confront himself like fatherhood. You start asking questions you never dared to ask before. Who am I becoming? What kind of legacy am I leaving? What will my children remember? When they think of me, monogamy isn't just a promise to a partner. It's a promise to your family, a silent commitment that says, I won't run, I won't break, I won't give my best to strangers while giving my worst to the people who need me most. And the world tries to tell men that loyalty is boring. That commitment means giving up excitement. That settling down is a loss of freedom. But that's a lie designed to keep you from your power. Because here's the truth, no one tells you monogamy is not the end of desire. It's the sharpening of it. It's choosing depth over distraction, substance over surface, purpose over impulse. It's easy to chase moments that feel good, but real power is found in moments that make you good. Not because they're thrilling, but because they're meaningful. And fatherhood offers that meaning every single day, in the quiet sacrifices, in the consistency, in the simple, unnoticed choices to show up when no one else will. Every time a man stays when he could have left, when he could have shut down, when he could have chosen ego over effort, he becomes more than just a father. He becomes an anchor, a lighthouse, a model for what strength really looks like. Because here's what most people forget. Children don't just remember what you say, they remember what you do. They watch how you treat their mother. They feel your energy in the room. They carry your silence, your anger, your kindness, all of it. And long after they've grown up, they will look for your presence in every decision they make. Your example doesn't just shape their childhood, it shapes their standard for love, for trust, for manhood itself. Being a good father isn't about perfection, it's about presence. It's about showing up even when you're tired, frustrated, or unsure. It's about choosing consistency over comfort, and that choice to be fully there rewires your own heart. It turns sacrifice into satisfaction. It turns duty into devotion. There's nothing soft about fatherhood. There's nothing passive about love. The strongest men aren't the ones chasing every option. They're the ones who build one life with unshakable focus. They lead not through dominance, but through direction, through values, through integrity. And here's the deeper truth most men never hear. When you choose loyalty, you don't lose freedom, you gain clarity. You stop scattering your energy. You stop chasing approval. You begin to stand in your own authority. You move from being reactive to being intentional, and that shift changes everything. Because the greatest power a man can possess is the ability to lead his family not with control, but with character, not with force, but with faithfulness. The world doesn't need more charming men. It needs more committed ones, more consistent ones, more men who rise, not because they feel like it, but because they know their purpose is bigger than their mood. So if you've ever questioned whether it's worth it, the sacrifice, the effort, the slow, steady grind of staying loyal when it's hard, remember this: someone is watching, someone who will learn from your actions, someone who will carry your legacy, and maybe no one will clap for you, maybe no one will thank you, but every time you choose to show up for your family, every time you put in the work when no one's watching, you are planting seeds that will grow long after you're gone. That is the reward of staying. That is the power of fatherhood. Not just to love, but to become love. Not just to lead, but to embody what leadership looks like in the form of presence, patience, and purpose. And when you understand that, you stop chasing what's temporary. You start building what's timeless. But even the strongest intentions are tested. Even the most devoted men face moments of weakness. Because desire doesn't disappear just because you love someone. Temptation doesn't vanish just because you have children, and loyalty isn't a one-time decision, it's a battle fought in silence, over and over again, inside the mind of a man who knows what's at stake. This is where the truth becomes uncomfortable. Cheating isn't always about lust. It's about something deeper: unmet needs, emotional starvation, unresolved pain. Neuroscience has shown that when people cheat, they're not only seeking sex. They're often seeking identity, seeking validation, seeking the feeling of being wanted, seen, alive again. But here's what the science also shows: that thrill is short-lived. The brain lights up with dopamine in the moment, the same chemical rush as gambling or drugs, but it crashes just as fast. And when the rush fades, what's left? Guilt, regret, a broken connection, a family that doesn't understand why. And a man who thought he'd gained something but only ended up losing himself. Because every time you betray trust, you don't just hurt the person you love, you hurt the wiring of your own brain. You train yourself to disconnect when things get hard. You build a pattern of escape, not resilience. You weaken your ability to bond, and that damage doesn't go away when you say sorry. It lingers, it echoes, it becomes part of how you see yourself. There's a myth that says men cheat because they're just wired that way. But that's a lie told by those unwilling to grow. Yes, the brain is drawn to novelty. Yes, we are wired to notice beauty, to respond to pleasure, to seek validation. But we're also wired to choose, to evolve, to discipline ourselves in service of something greater. That's what separates a man from a boy, not whether he feels tempted, but whether he chooses purpose over pleasure, whether he uses his strength to protect what matters or destroy it, whether he has the courage to say, "I will not trade what I value most for what I want in a passing moment." And here's the deeper danger: cheating doesn't always start with action. It starts with attention. With small choices, with subtle disconnections, the texts you shouldn't send, the compliments that cross a line, the mental fantasies you feed when life feels dull. It starts long before anyone ever touches anyone. It starts in the mind. That's why awareness is power. That's why accountability matters. Because when you understand how your brain works, you stop falling into patterns unconsciously. You learn to recognize the triggers. You learn to speak when something's missing instead of hiding behind silence. You learn to build connection again, not through escape, but through effort. You cannot protect your family if you're not willing to protect your mind. You cannot lead your children if you cannot lead yourself. But here's the good news: the same brain that chases chaos can also choose commitment. The same mind that wanders can be trained to return to what matters. Neuroscience shows that when couples invest in each other emotionally, physically, intentionally, their brains begin to sync. Their nervous systems start to co-regulate. Their connection deepens not by chance, but by choice. Loyalty isn't about never being tempted. It's about refusing to let temporary desire destroy permanent love. Every time you resist what's easy, you get stronger. Every time you choose to speak instead of shutting down, you heal. Every time you come home when it would be easier to leave, you grow into the kind of man the world desperately needs: grounded, faithful, and fiercely devoted. This is the man who doesn't just avoid destruction. He builds, he protects, he honors, not just because it's expected of him, but because it's who he has decided to be. And if you've made mistakes, if you've broken trust before, this isn't about shame. This is about rising. This is about redemption. Your past does not define you. Your next decision does. What matters most is what you do from this moment forward, because you are more than your impulses. You are more than your distractions. You are a man capable of discipline, capable of deep love, capable of building a legacy that outlives you. The mind will always offer escape routes, but your heart knows the truth. What you really want is not a moment of pleasure. What you really want is peace, integrity, wholeness, and that only comes when your actions match your values, when you stop running from responsibility and start standing inside it. That is where true freedom lies. Not in doing whatever you want, but in becoming the man you were always meant to be, one choice at a time. When a man chooses integrity over impulse, he doesn't just protect his family, he strengthens his identity. Because every time you act in alignment with your values, you're not just building trust with others, you're building trust with yourself. You begin to believe in your own strength. You begin to feel that inner weight of knowing, I am a man who keeps his word. I am a man who can be counted on, and that feeling, it changes the way you walk into a room. It changes the way you look in the mirror. The world tells you that strength is about power, status, control. But real strength is quiet, it's internal, it's found in the man who walks away from temptation without needing applause, in the father who puts down his phone and listens, in the husband who chooses to repair instead of resent. Strength isn't loud, it's consistent, and consistency is what creates legacy. No one remembers the one-time grand gestures, they remember the daily sacrifices, the small moments of being seen. The safety of knowing someone will be there not just in words, but in presence. In patience, in love that doesn't fluctuate with mood or circumstance. That kind of love, it creates safety, not just in others, but within yourself. It silences the chaos. It quiets the noise. It gives you something unshakable in a world that constantly tries to pull you apart. But here's the hard truth. No one applauds you for choosing discipline. No one hands out awards for loyalty. You will not go viral for being a good man, a devoted husband, a present father. There's no spotlight on the sacrifices. No cameras in the late-night talks, the quiet apologies, the holding on when everything says let go. But you don't do it for applause. You do it because you know what's on the line. You do it because the man you become through loyalty is far more powerful than the one who gives in to every urge. You do it because real peace comes when you no longer need to look over your shoulder, when you can rest in the truth of who you are and what you're building, and if no one sees it, if no one understands it, that's okay, because you're not doing this for validation. You're doing it for transformation. This kind of life, the loyal life, the father's life, the faithful man's life, it's not glamorous, but it's sacred. It's not about perfection. It's about presence. Not about how often you get it right, but how quickly you return when you get it wrong. Because every time you return, you realign, you rebuild, you become the kind of man your children will measure others by. Kind of man who redefines masculinity not through dominance or detachment, but through emotional strength, through unwavering truth. And make no mistake, this world needs more of that kind of man. A man who doesn't run from responsibility, but leans into it. A man who can hold space for his own pain, so he doesn't pass it on. A man who can say, I am not perfect, but I am committed. That commitment becomes a light. A guide, not just for your children, but for every person who watches how you live. You lead with your presence. You lead with your priorities. You lead by example, even when it's hard, even when no one claps, even when everything inside you wants to run. That is real leadership, and it's rare. So if you're feeling the pressure, if you're carrying weight you can't always explain, if you're fighting battles no one else sees, know this: you are not weak. You are on the path, and that path, while narrow, leads to everything that matters: peace, purpose, legacy, because the truth is, anyone can chase what's easy. Anyone can follow pleasure, but it takes a different breed of man to rise above his impulses, to choose growth over gratification, to turn down noise and build something solid. And yes, it's hard, but hard is where greatness lives. Hard is where you meet your true self, not the version shaped by pressure or pain. Not the version influenced by culture or chaos, but the version that rises silently and steadily because he refuses to betray what he knows is right. You don't have to be perfect to be powerful. You don't have to have it all figured out to be faithful. You just have to keep choosing love, keep choosing loyalty, keep choosing the man you said you would be even on the days you feel like anything but, because every time you choose him, you become him. And that is how you build a life that cannot be shaken, a love that cannot be broken, and a legacy that will never be forgotten. There comes a moment in every man's life when the noise of the world gets quiet, when distractions lose their pull, when temptations no longer thrill like they once did. And in that silence, a deeper question rises. What kind of man am I becoming when no one is watching? That's the mirror no one can avoid. Not the one on the wall, but the one inside, the mirror of the soul. It doesn't care about your image, your followers, your paycheck, or your charm. It only reflects what's real, your values, your choices, your truth. And when you finally meet that version of yourself stripped of excuses, stripped of performance, what matters most is not whether you've made mistakes. Everyone has. What matters is whether you kept coming back, whether you kept choosing the path that built something instead of burned it down. The legacy you leave is not some distant future. It's being written right now, in the tone you use when you speak to your partner, in the way you respond when your child interrupts you, in the discipline you practice when no one's around to praise you for it. These small, ordinary moments, they are the legacy, because love is not a feeling you fall into. It's a decision you rise into over and over again. And monogamy, despite what the world tries to sell, is not a prison. It's a path, a narrow road that leads to deeper freedom. The kind of freedom that comes from knowing you are whole not because you have every option, but because you've chosen the option that gives your life meaning. There is a kind of peace only available to men who choose to stay when it's hard, who remain when everything screams to escape. That peace isn't loud, it's quiet, it's calm, it's stable. It allows you to stand in chaos without being consumed by it, because you know who you are. And when a man knows who he is truly, deeply the world around him begins to change. But you don't get there by accident, you get there by intention, by showing up every day not just for your family but for your standards, for your calling, for the sacred responsibility of being a man who leads not with fear but with love. Not with noise, but with presence, not with perfection, but with consistency. People think loyalty is about the absence of desire. It's not. It's about the presence of purpose, about knowing that desire is fleeting, but what you're building lasts. That in a world where everyone chases the next high, the man who builds something real is the one who will be remembered. And yes, the road gets lonely sometimes. Yes, there are days when you'll feel unseen. Underappreciated, misunderstood, but that's not the time to shrink. That's the time to rise, because pressure doesn't break you. It reveals you. It sharpens you. It teaches you where your limits are and then invites you to rise beyond them. Every storm you survive, every urge you overcome, every moment you act from principle instead of pain, that is a brick in the foundation of a life no one can tear down. You become unshakable not because life gets easier, but because you get stronger. And the more you live from that place, that grounded, anchored place, the more you become a force for healing, for clarity, for truth. You stop repeating the cycles you were raised in. You stop bleeding on the people who didn't cut you. You stop reacting and start leading. That's the real work, the internal battle, the daily discipline. Not just to stay loyal to another person, but to stay loyal to the man you promised yourself you would become. A man of substance, a man of weight. A man whose life speaks louder than his words ever could. You don't have to be extraordinary to begin. You just have to begin with honesty, with humility, with the quiet courage to say, I am not there yet, but I am on the way. And every day I show up with integrity is a victory. This world will try to distract you, to tempt you, to convince you that depth isn't worth it, that discipline is outdated, that manhood is toxic, but don't buy the lie. Don't let the culture define your character. Let your character redefine the culture. Be the exception. Be the man who stands for something, who loves deeply, who stays when others leave, who builds when others destroy. Not because it's easy, but because it's right, because it's necessary, and long after the crowd moves on, long after the moment passes, what you've built will still stand. Your children will feel it. Your partner will feel it. The world around you will feel it. That's how a man becomes immortal, not through fame, but through faithfulness, not through noise, but through the silent echo of a life well lived. Keep choosing, keep building, keep rising. You're not just writing a story, you're becoming one.